I hope that everybody's enjoying their lunch and conversation. We want to add to that. We're very lucky to be joined by Mr. Sebastian Barron from the Office of the Governor, Governor Kemp here in Atlanta, to talk more about these conversations around AI, the talent pipeline, how we are cultivating locally to have these conversations and to keep the talent here and to spur on new business innovation. Let's have a nice warm welcome for Sebastian Barron.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So, Sebastian, I've really enjoyed...
I should make my... Okay, it's
on. You've got that great voice. Well, I'm going to be in competition mode with you, Sebastian. I enjoyed talking with you off stage just about sort of that balance between a governor's agenda and what is going on at the local level to spur confidence within a sector, all the way up sort of from K-12 to local communities up into our universities. And I know that you spent a lot of time in your role, small businesses, and sort of understanding that conversation and how Metro Atlanta can be supporting that. Where are we right now with sort of the state of innovation here locally? And what are some benchmark wins that we should be aware of when people are contemplating how they'd like to engage with a metropolitan juggernaut like Atlanta?
Yes, well, I appreciate that question. I just share with everybody that's here. My primary role is being Governor Kemp's Metro Atlanta representative, small business outreach. So do a lot of connectivity with small business and medium-sized businesses as well. A big part for us is just knowing legislatively what's the best actions to take for growing our businesses here locally. So for the state as a whole, our biggest industry is agriculture. So within that, it's not necessarily the actual cultivation of minerals and plants itself. It's the technology that's around it that is the big money pool and all the infrastructure that ties into that. So for us, when it pertains primarily, since it's an AI focus, it's looking at what technologies are being cultivated here in Georgia and how we can grow those small companies as well, primarily through our higher education systems. So we have a broad variety of schools from UGA, Georgia Tech, Georgia State. In our rural areas, we got University of North Georgia, Georgia Southern. And a lot of times you may find when you're talking to students, the type of ideas that they're coming up with are based off of their surroundings in that way. So you see a lot of things based off of where you're at, those ideas being brought about in startups in those areas based off of those regions that you're in.
So let's chunk that by demographic or age, if you don't mind. So for the younger students, or sort of that K-12 population, what are we seeing with regards to opportunities to experience and or be exposed to new technologies? Because I know I want to get into higher ed and the incubators that I know are well known, not just here in Georgia, but across the Southeast.
For us right now, it's been a long time you've heard about the term STEM. But STEM is not what it was even 7 years ago when the governor first took office. It's drastically different now. Nobody was talking about AI during that time frame. If you look at it just like things that we have incorporated in our lives, I never got on a Zoom until 2020. Maybe some people in here may have been more advanced than me in that area. I never used a QR code until 2021. Now that's everywhere, and if it's not there, you're looking for where is the QR code. So you look at that, those innovations happened very rapidly, and each year has went just as fast as well. So when you look at our K-12 system, you want to make sure that it's aligning with where the workforce is, because ultimately we are having a pipeline of educating our children, K-12 system, and preparing them for higher education and the workforce. But we also know that the younger generation also is the most innovative, and you want to put in those resources through K-12 and keep people in the state to cultivate those areas. A big push, a thing we was able to do about 3 years ago was reinstitute our Hope Scholarship to the full funding, which means that anyone who graduates high school in Georgia with a 3.0 overall GPA can go to school tuition free in state. So that helps us a lot with keeping a lot of our K-12 talent that we pour into in state and keep those businesses flowing and workforce strengthening in state as well.
That's a fantastic sort of chapter in the story, right, as they're sort of evolving through it, right? Okay, so let's then transition to higher ed and the incubators space. What I love about that space is that to me it really speaks to the younger generation and the way in which they like to develop community, collaborate together. It's sort of an anti-establishment approach,
Yes.
right, to innovation and
Yeah.
potentially what they want to do moving forward. Maybe they start a business here in Atlanta proper. How sort of rich, meaning like rich in the soil, is the incubator system here, the ecosystem? And where do you see that moving forward based on the governor's agenda?
Yes, it's two parts to it, a few parts, but I get into two main parts. It's a structure of funding one of our biggest incubators, the ATDC program, which is through Georgia Tech, but it's open to people even outside of the campus. And their goal is when people enter that program, I forget the exact number, but it's a few $1 million that the state pours into that program. It's to elevate startups and get them to a point where their graduation isn't based off of just time put in or going through a certain amount of classes. Their goal is to get those startups to a point where graduation is when the company has $5 million in revenue. So every year, this year, they graduated over a dozen companies. So to get that many companies that based here and started here in Georgia to $5 million in revenue every year is a big step in multiplying the investment for the taxpayer money that goes into ATDC. And ultimately, it's about, we graduate a lot of great students from our technical college system, from our four-year college system, and the students that come out of our K through 12 system as well. You want the talent to stay here in Georgia. So we look at what can we do to pour into those students and get a return on our investment through Hope Scholarship and ATDC and other programs as well, and other partnerships we have here. Because we know we have the talent here. For a while, it was a staggering statistic of a stunning number of Georgia Tech graduates that were getting startup funds in Silicon Valley. So
Really?
yeah, it was like a sizable number. And it was like, you look at that and say, if they're getting educated here, we want them to stay here in Atlanta and have those opportunities to get their projects funded. Because it's more than ever now, this generation has a broader, stronger, in a way, entrepreneurial spirit than I think at any time in the past, primarily because of the access to information that is available and that emphasis of problem solving being emphasized more so than job seeking in that way.
How do you tackle being a global marketplace, right? You're talking about sort of Georgia Tech students. On one hand, it's great that their talent is being realized, but then they're moving on to Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
But really, we're talking about a global marketplace. So what are the challenges that Atlanta and Georgia face more broadly to, I guess, continue that storytelling so that those students and hopefully soon to be entrepreneurs see that this is the environment, this is the ecosystem that provides, I guess, the best talent pipeline for them to build their teams and or the incentives to be able to work in a productive manner?
The biggest part for us as a state is evaluating that we do have huge companies, a lot of success stories here in Georgia. And when those companies become successful, they tend to pour back into their schools or in their community. One of the bigger programs that we have is Create X through a man named Chris Claus, who was able to sell his company and then create that Create X program. I was a part of him when he had a pitch competition where he gave away about $175,000 to 3 students, and that was based off of his success. So it was another big AI summit that happened in India last week, where it was a lot of American-based companies that went over there to invest in ideas in India, which is great because we have a global economy and we try to build on our relationship with India as well. But ultimately, we want companies to look locally first towards their investments, to say if there's opportunities to fund more companies, look to the state of Georgia as a whole. And also with the global market that we live in now, when companies are looking to expand, that's why you see the governor taking trips to Japan, Brazil, went to United Kingdom about a month ago. Is to say, if you're looking to do business in the United States, look to Georgia for first. So we're understanding that it's a global market, but also looking to say, we want business to look at the state of Georgia as the place you stop first for doing business.
And I want to give you a chance to sort of stump on all the benefits of doing business in Georgia, but through a global lens. I've been able to spend a lot of time in the Nordics, and right now in Norway, they're really struggling with a newly imposed exit tax, which basically means if you want to start a business there, it's very counterproductive for you to then want to sell or leave or take it outside of Norway. And that's having a ripple effect amongst those that are the most innovative and the sort of the new, on the come generation, trying to figure out where they should start their businesses. So what is Georgia doing? What is Atlanta doing from a tax perspective and an environment to make it advantageous for the next generation of entrepreneurs to say, this is where I want to start?
Big place for us is if you look across some of the major industries here in Georgia. Auto manufacturing is one of our huge industries. We have our Kia plant that was started here in the mid-2000s, and what came from that. Under Governor Kemp's administration, we landed the Hyundai plant and the Rivian plant. And when you look at those big companies, it's not just them by itself. It's the supply chain and the innovation that happens to make those companies run. So a lot of our incentives are based off of local, because it's a competition within different states to attract these international businesses, but also locally to say we want this business or this company to come to our county. So a lot of those are delegated based off of the size of the infrastructure of those projects. One that's gotten really big and gets a lot of news right now is data centers. That's a big, I guess you got a tour of a data center going on next week, but that incentive is based off of our data center tax credit, which is one of the most competitive in the country and has led to a lot of major companies choosing Georgia as their home to build out their data centers, which is something that's desperately needed as we build out our AI systems, but also coupling that with making sure you have regard for what's best for the community when it comes to resources and consumption. So innovation in that part is important as well. So to answer your question, so I summarize my answer, I would say that you look at what can make us most competitive comparative to other states, and we've done an effective job of that as attracting businesses, but also what does one investment, when I use the example of Kia, it led to Kia being a Korean-based company, led to other Korean investments as well. Same thing that's happening, that's related to Hyundai investment based on their comfortability. And we're doing those same inroads with other countries to get one investment, and it leads to more developments from different countries based off the comfort of a major brand and the supply chain that happens within that as well. Because we also have a push to be a major player based off our Rivian investment in the EV space. And that is a space that is forever evolving with the technology investments. Most of the time you look at electric vehicles, they usually now have the most advanced technology that you can find in vehicles. Those EV vehicles are closer to what you see as more autonomous compared to other vehicles. It's the space of where in years past, luxury vehicles would be like they had the newest technology, or back when cars were more primitive, it was like you had power steering was like a luxury item, or I'm old enough where you had the roll down windows,
You're starting to date us here.
Yeah, a little bit, or so those type of technologies you find in EV vehicles first, and then they ripple over to the more internal combustion engine. So being in our lead in EV space allows for us to have the innovation in the auto space as well happening right here in Georgia compared to the innovation happening in other countries first.
So basically, you're telling a story for the younger entrepreneur or entrepreneurs out there, or those college students, that all these developments are basically, you're painting a canvas that says we're creating an environment for you to be able to play in, to succeed in. It may not be directly tied to what their innovation is or what they're going to build, but the sum, right, is really the story that you're trying to tell.
Yeah.
So, Sebastian, I was talking in the last panel about box scores.
Yeah.
Right? Like when we go, so you dated us here, we were rolling windows and stuff, right?
Yeah.
If we were coaches and we looked at the box score after the game. I might look at certain things that tell me we played well or we need to get better in a certain area.
Yeah.
You might have a different set of stats that you're looking at. In your role and at the community level, help me understand the box score and how you look at it through the lens of, are we doing what we're saying we're doing, but at the local level in communicating the opportunity, whatever that means, to the local citizen here in Atlanta? How do you approach that?
Yes, from the business perspective, we look at, from the governor's office, we just don't want to get into businesses' development's way. We don't want the government to get in people's way in that way when it comes to developing their business, or just having an overly regulated environment. And I'll give you the best example of last year. We passed major legislation in a category called tort reform. You may have heard a little bit about it, but for those that aren't familiar, tort reform was a process of reforming how insurance is conducted here in the state of Georgia. And the reason for that is because we talked to small and large business owners and medium-sized business owners on some of the shortcomings or challenge they were facing when it came to lawsuits, some cases frivolous lawsuits, and how it was impacting year-over-year premiums and the effectiveness to do their business based off of those lawsuits. So we looked at it and said, you don't want no lawsuits. You want people to be compensated for any areas where they see fit, but you don't want it to be at a point where the lawsuits are getting in the way of business operations. So the tort reform was successful legislation that the governor was able to lead directly based off of feedback from business owners. You look at it the same way. You say, right now, what are the things that are being worked on? What legislatively is keeping you from growing your business? So that's kind of the first step we look at the state level, to say, this is, and it's, go back to your question about the global market. We understand that every country is different as far as their regulations and how they allow for products and services to be developed and technologies to be put together. So we look at it to say, how can we be competitive in the same way, mindful of regulations, but also not have it a hindrance to development and growth in a global market, to be able to keep up with all the innovations that are happening globally.
So I would imagine that trying to address your constituency gets harder and harder, and it's just more complex. Life is getting more challenging, and it's moving at a faster pace. Where on the scale of sort of a to-do list, whether it's a concern or not, is AI landing for your work and the governor at large in trying to understand how to embrace, how to put out the conditions so that we can cultivate it over time? Help me understand the relationship that the city and the governor's office has with AI in initiatives directly impacting citizens.
The biggest impact is for AI is just a tool for innovation and efficiency. So I'll give you an example. You have workforce challenges throughout the state and throughout the country in particular sectors. And most business owners are looking at how they can use AI not to eliminate jobs, but make their companies be more efficient. So from an anecdote level, when I talk to a lot of business owners, they have implemented certain tools that aren't categorized as AI, but they in a way are, such as self-service kiosks, or certain tools that are used in their payroll structures, or when you have a factory, certain tools that are utilized in the manufacturing structure of like having certain products or certain tasks that are repetitive that may have a hard time keeping people in those roles or even filling them in the first place. They look at, say, what can we do to not have this issue with hiring and retention and filling those roles in that way. So we look at it from the state level. You want to continue to keep businesses flowing and operational, and also allow for AI not to be something that people are afraid of.
That it's not an either or, it's an and.
Yes.
Right. So then plug that into the calculus around workforce development, which obviously is, I would imagine, a major, effort with the governor. Just help me understand workforce development, understanding how AI is already being deployed, and I guess how the government can play a role in supporting those developments so that the story doesn't careen off to the side for workers locally who are concerned about their place in the workforce.
Yeah, it's basically from engaging with people in events and conferences like this, because everybody, the governor covers everything when it comes to the state. And for an individual, they're focused on their industry and their goals. So someone that you talk to who works in, let's say, the manufacturing industry again, they work in the hospitality industry. They're focused, locked in every day on the survival of their business. So they have a better understanding of what innovations may be out there to make their businesses operate more easily, and an awareness for it as well. So it's engaging with people at their level about what precisely is happening in each industry that we need to be aware of in that way. And I used those examples earlier because it's things that helped us a lot during our transition during COVID with those QR codes when it went from a lot of contactless deliveries. Helped us also with Zoom for a lot of people being able to continue to do business because they could discover Zoom for the first time like I did, and a lot of other people, Zoom, and there was some other ones that popped up as well that allow people to operate in that way. So that innovation continues to happen. And I say it, I tell another off story. I spend a lot of time talking to high school students and young people about, my role in business. And I was telling them about, the time before caller ID came out. They didn't know that was a thing. They didn't realize that caller ID just came out in the 90s, But, and that's a form of artificial intelligence.
We loved it, didn't we?
Yeah.
It was very revealing.
Yes. Yeah, because before you just have to, hang up or not answer if you were trying to avoid somebody. But that's a form of artificial intelligence that has came about, where it's a standard. Like there's no phone you can get that doesn't tell you who's calling now. And it's going to be incorporated in just a more rapid way in different sectors, in that same way where during 80s and 90s, it might be an innovation that comes out, and it takes 5 years for the upgrade that comes out. We had VHS tapes from the 80s, 90s. DVDs didn't come out to like maybe the late 90s. Maybe.
We had Blu-rays for a
little
second,
bit.
right?
Yeah. But now it's like these innovations are just happening so much faster that you have to stay in touch and stay in tune with what's happening and having these conversations with each industry to know what's going on and to know how we can best govern and how we can be most effective as leadership in these industries.
I'm going to get you out of here on this, and I know you're going to spend time here so people have an opportunity to mingle with Sebastian, but I'm so curious, just in your own professional journey, and you gave a hint there about just you enjoying going to local schools and speaking with kids. Tell me about the sense of potentially pride I think that you probably have, getting to know you briefly today, in serving as a bit of a narrator to the story locally for not only what Atlanta has been and is, but what it can be tomorrow. Does that feel like a great sense of responsibility in being a bit of a narrator and representing not just the governor, but obviously your fellow citizens?
I think the biggest part of my role is just like the governor takes pride in, and why he created this capacity of field representatives, is being able to connect with people on a day-to-day basis in that way and share information and get feedback in that way, where it's something that you have to do beyond just an election cycle. When you're doing a job you're elected to do, you're here to serve people. And a part of serving people is to continue to listen to them. And when you're in certain circles, certain industries, you might hear certain things that you may deem as being repetitive, but to someone it may be the first time they're hearing it, or something that needs to be said and shared in that way. So that's the biggest part of just being able to go out every day and share, but also listen and give that feedback to our office and our leadership with the governor and implement that beyond just conversations.
Well, I've really enjoyed your conversation and the transparency. It's also exciting to hear about what Atlanta's doing that has not just impact here in Georgia, in the Southeast, across the U.S., but also worldwide. So let's have a nice round of applause for Sebastian Barron from the governor's office. Thank you, Sebastian.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.